morning.
Hey, good morning. Like I'm tiny over here in the corner, dude.
There you go. There we are.
How's it going this morning for everybody, huh? How's the price looking? How's the charts looking? How's your life looking? How's your lunch looking, man?
Whew, man. That was the first time in a while that we had to play the Wojak McDonald's video.
Yeah, I felt bad, didn't it, man?
Yeah, we had a really good run there. But no, I mean, trying to figure out right now if are the markets down because we need a little retrace or whatever, or are we down just because Elon Musk and Trump are beefing on the timeline?
I think we're down so that I think this dip is a decline as a gift from the whole labs team, the market makers, all the villains, so that we can get a lower entry, dude.
Well,
that's what
I will say this, like yesterday, I'll do the S chart before I do the Bitcoin because right now I have the scribblings of a madman on the Sonic chart.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I have that poorly drawn oval is that this was what I was watching right here. Was if we have a candle or two below this, then maybe we're in trouble. But if we bounce, basically we keep bouncing off this level. So right now my hopium is that we're going to bounce off this same level again, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's, it's looking likely at the moment, but we'll see what happens. My red bar here, kind of easy money zone. We'll see what happens though. Like I said, it's Bitcoin for a minute was plummeting. It made it all the way down to 100 something. It was getting close to busting under 100. And that's usually, it's like I've said before, you gotta look at that, right? You gotta look at
under 100, okay?
Yeah.
Number one rule: don't ever bust under 100. No one at home, man. All right. Real quick, before we go further on Bitcoin, real quick, go back to the sun chart. So you're saying you were expecting that if we close above that, like bounce off of this bottom support here, the final support, some might say.
Yeah.
You expect us to bounce, like skip across that like a rock kind of thing, like on water, or
yeah, I would like to see us bounce and go
complete trend reversal
over and to the right,
yes.
Over and to the left, over and to the right.
I for once would just love to see some leftwards price action on the chart, but we never get it.
I think that like I said, it's this could just be an ill-timed pullback. Like I said, it's like we get in our little X timeline algo bubble and things seem maybe worse than they are. Yeah, what I'm anticipating is a bounce here. I've literally run this play like twice already. The question is, do I get to run it a third time? We'll see.
Yeah. Is third time the charm, or is it third time's the fool, Dracula? We'll see.
Third time
with you, because not a single one of us here is a capitulator. We're all hopeless dreamers.
Well, that was the issue yesterday. Was like in some of the group chats, everybody's like, "Is it over? What do I do?" And it was like, well, I was like, it's hard because I feel like this zone is really important right here. This is like to me, it's very like make or break kind of zone. So like I said, I'm playing it like we're gonna bounce, but I'm still gonna kind of, I'm gonna like feel it out for probably another close, maybe like today's close. But you know what I hate? I hate when something like this happens and then we're going into the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the weekend in crypto, it's kind of like it's like the Twilight Zone. It's like anything can happen that doesn't make sense, and then by Monday, the show continues on the normal programming.
Yeah.
The weekend, everybody gets squirrely, everybody gets weird, everybody's like, what can I manipulate? What can I, So I don't love that this is happening on Friday, but yeah, I'm going to watch the close definitely today over the weekend. But in my opinion, right now, I think it's like a reversal area. So
Okay. I agree with you, but I think I guess I have a strange question. Maybe is that personally myself, I have a little bit of difficulty separating the S chart from the Phantom chart, and like
mhm.
psychologically, right? I don't even know if that's correct or not. Maybe it's correct to have old price targets from Phantom in my mind when I'm looking at the S chart, or maybe it's incorrect. What do you think, Drek?
This is a point of contention amongst fellow TAers and chartors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some people think that you should run the historic Phantom chart, essentially. Um, I'm not running it that way. I'm running it as S is a new thing because it is different, right? It's different tokenomics. It's different, it's a different chart in my opinion, but there are people that are running their TA kind of more off like, okay, like I'm also pulling in like historic Phantom. So we'll see how that plays out, right? I feel like we have enough data and enough price action to kind of like work off the S chart, but you know, I will say that you will see like different opinions based on whether they're just running S or if they're running like S and like historic Phantom. So take that with a grain of salt or as you will, but that's how I'm playing it.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, I like it, dude. I like it because this is a little bit more hopeful for me. Because when I think of the Phantom chart, I think 30 cents. That's like what 50 cents is for Sonic, though. So I guess that is the difference. It's kind of a different kind of cluster area for the price.
Yeah. So, but there's also other things going into this price action right now. This is just looking at TA. We're not immune to other factors. One being that there is also debate on is price action right now linked to the looming airdrop.
Undoubtedly, it's always priced in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's the meme. It's like everything's priced in. It's all priced in. It's always priced in. So yeah, I don't know. It's like I said, there's things that we can't totally necessarily account for. Yeah, JBBQ here. Yeah, we were looking at some TA the other day. Yeah, and that guy's video, he was doing like waves on Phantom, and he had like some very bullish based on running like the Phantom historic chart. He had like a bullish outlook in terms of like wave theory. I'm terrible at wave theory, so I don't run it, but people that are good at it, you should always pay attention because it's pretty powerful in the right hands.
Our secret guest brilliantly shared something here. I want to share it because it's a different chart. Dracula's gonna steal your thunder here, but I like this because it gives me more hopium. So I'm gonna put it.
Let's go ahead and bring him up here, man. I guess we're talking about S. We should have Mitchell up here.
He's like probably why are we keeping you back? We're probably way more about this than we do.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Mitchell of Sonic Strategy, CEO. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you guys having me on.
So this was what Mitchell was sharing. Okay. All right.
Yeah, this chart takes into consideration the Phantom history or the FTM history, which I think is relevant because at the end of the day, it's the same asset. And so I think you need to zoom out. Like we're so compressed on that new Sonic chart that there's just not enough data, I don't think. And so when you zoom out the full historical, the full picture, I think it looks a lot better than that short-term chart.
Yeah, I agree on the long term. If you combine the data sets, I think it looks a lot better because it looks like it's moving towards what do you call that? Consolidating wedge, rising wedge, or where the fuck they call it. Yeah. It's getting tighter and higher. That's what I like to see.
High and tight,
baby. But yeah, I kind of like this one more. Sorry, Drac, but I kind of like Dracula in that maybe. I feel like maybe in shorter time frames. I like just looking at just the pure S. Yeah. I imagine the other traders are looking at it just that way. If they're trading it on a shorter time frame.
Yeah, I mean this is a nicer looking hopium kind of deal. Yeah, like similar to like what I was just saying. It's like it looks like someone's kind of all. You got the wedge here, and they're also kind of like charting out sort of like a wave thing. And or is this your chart?
No, this isn't my chart. This was just on TradingView here.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm gonna say like the waves, look good here. We used to argue about waves back in the day because like people would like think they know what they're doing and then they draw crazy stuff and then it's like totally off. But this looks pretty good to me.
I would agree.
$7 S. How does that make you guys feel? Is it too moon boyish or is it you feel good about it?
I feel good about it. I don't think it's that crazy.
It would be great. It would be great for the guy making a strategic S fund.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really bullish on Sonic here, obviously, and this chart kind of matches our thesis really. We think it's extremely oversold and undervalued right now. And I think, obviously the migration from Phantom to Sonic back in December and that big deleveraging that we had with the exchanges closing out the order books when there was like $460 million in open interest. That took a ton of momentum out of the price action and just sentiment, obviously. It
was like a hard reset.
Totally. And massive flush, but overall, when you look at the fundamentals, all the on-chain activity, the applications that are launching, the daily active users, like everything else is up and to the right. It's just the price action that's lagging in my mind.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people are kind of familiar with what you're doing, but for those that don't know, wondering if you wanted to kind of like tell them about like Sonic strategy and like what you guys are trying to do and all that good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what we've built here is a company that's focused on Sonic and the Sonic ecosystem. We're publicly traded and listed in Canada on the Canadian Securities Exchange. We just completed what's essentially like a reverse takeover. So you take a publicly traded vehicle with a business that is struggling to get momentum. We came in, we took over the company. I took over as CEO. And then we just actually earlier this week, we finalized selling out or spinning out the legacy business. So we've got this clean vehicle. We just raised some cash into the business. We closed the first tranche of our $10 million raise. So we raised $7.3 million. And then inside the business, we're basically just directionally long on Sonic and the ecosystem. So we're in the process of setting up our first validators. We've accumulated just over 4 million tokens in the market just in the first week of buying here.
Wow.
And we've got a steady buy program in place now. So we'll continue to accumulate tokens. We've been talking with a lot of the kind of larger ecosystem participants right now. And so we'll get some DeFi strategies going. We'll be making some investments in some of the ecosystem tokens. And then, yeah, we basically... we have this model where we can earn Sonic and just be continuing to add to our Sonic position and supporting the ecosystem.
Nice. So like that's good to know as well that so with all this like accumulation, you guys are like planning to get like into validators and all that stuff. So yeah, you got like steady earning on the staking and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of these companies, there's a certain size that makes the business viable. Obviously, being a public company, there's a lot more overhead than a private company. We're heavily regulated. There's a lot of compliance. There's registration. We've got our own market makers that we need to engage for our own stock and promotion and all that kind of stuff. And so there is overhead, but with the cash that we've been able to raise so far, and the second tranche that we're looking to close in the next week or so, with this capital actively deployed into the ecosystem, we can easily cover our costs and still continue to accumulate Sonic.
Wow, that's awesome, dude. So it's like a non-ponzified MicroStrategy, right?
Yeah. We won't be using any irresponsible leverage. Like as we hit a certain scale, we'll be able to get some different kinds of debt. And but yeah, basically, it's a very simple, clean business where we raise cash through equity financing, so we're not levered up. And then we're basically just here to kind of act as this proxy and this bridge to the traditional capital markets, where the demand is massive. Like a lot of people, us being crypto natives and all being in the industry for a long time, it's easy to get caught in our echo chamber where we think that, everybody does have access, and obviously anybody can go sign up for a Coinbase account or something, but there's still, there's tax complications, there's custody, there's all these different risks that a lot of people just don't want to take. And a lot of people still just have their money managed by wealth advisors or there's different funds and different institutions, and they want access, but they still don't know how. And so I'm out here in Bermuda right now for a conference, capital events conference, where basically tomorrow I've got 20-minute meetings. That's like a fully curated list of meetings back to back, like speed dating, but with high net worth guys, institutions, fund managers, family offices. And these conversations have been landing really well. Like now there's a lot of these products in capital markets or traditional equities where they can get exposure to Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's a lot of these for Solana, but there's an appetite to go a little bit further down the risk curve and get exposure to good technology and good projects before they're at $100 billion market cap.
Yeah.
Bro, 20 meetings, 20 minutes each.
Yeah. I did this conference a few years ago for a different company, and it's a long day. It's like 6.5 hours or 7 hours, I think, with breaks, where you're just like telling the story over and over. But the beauty of it is, like, we've been doing this for the last couple of months already. And, we've been working with the team at Sonic Labs to make sure that we're articulating Sonic properly. But basically we're kind of just out here evangelizing Sonic and telling the story, and then how it fits into our business. And there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of people that we talk to that are like, okay, I get it, and they want to invest in our company, which allows us to go and invest into Sonic ecosystem directly. But a lot of people are just like, okay, well, I'm in for the Pubco, but I'm also going to go and buy $100,000 Sonic right now. I'm like, perfect. So it works both ways.
So that's interesting. So like you do, since you are traded in Canada, so it is kind of like you have shares of the company, and people can like invest based on like that exposure to S you have. Will you be like tokenizing that on like, on chain at all, or like in any way?
Yeah, we're definitely planning on that, which is fun. We've been talking with a company that's working on that, and I don't know the timeline for that. I think it could be at least a few months out, but yeah, which is kind of a funny concept because like everything, we've got this native tokens coming into traditional markets, and then we're going to take that company and tokenize it and bring it back on chain. But yeah, I think that's a massive use case, and I think that's where Sonic can actually shine, is like this infrastructure with all these real world assets coming on chain, whether it's equities like ours or more established equities, bring them back in and having global exposure.
Yeah, this is a really good question from Yankee Ruin, and he says, how do you go about pitching Sonic in the face of like more well-known assets like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, and is it like, do people, are you able to approach people, I guess, like based on their risk appetite, or is it like, do you, like, how do you like go about saying like you should invest in Sonic? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think people that understand Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, they usually understand Sonic fairly quickly, and they understand, like, when we talk about the metrics of Sonic, the on-chain growth, the underlying tech and the capabilities, and some of the things that they're doing to differentiate themselves from something like Sonic or Solana, the fact that it's EVM compatible. People understand it really quickly, and then it is just a little bit further down the risk curve, and people are usually they're looking to allocate and kind of diversify out of those main kind of 4 or 5 assets, and so it's like pitching the internet infrastructure in 1994. Totally, absolutely. And and that's actually an analogy we use sometimes. It's like, Ethereum was like dial-up internet, and Sonic is fiber. And so people understand that, and they understand that there's a lot more upside. Like I think, maybe I'm more bullish than the average person, but I think that there's no reason this can't be $100 billion ecosystem. And when you look at something, a lot of these institutions or family offices and such they're getting exposure to Solana. It's already there. Like, where does Solana go from here? I think there's obviously likely still some major upside there. Like, I think that there's room for that to run still. But it's not going to have the same returns as the potential we've got here in Sonic.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, I think it's a good point where it's kind of like, hey, if you already understand these other things, then what you're looking at here is, something with way more potential upside. Yes, like a little more risk as well. But yeah, I mean, because what is the price of Solana at a 10x from here?
Exactly.
Is Solana ever going to be like priced like buying Ethereum? You know what I mean? Like that. And that's like what a 10x begins to look like. So yeah, it is an interesting point.
Is this event like crypto specifically focused or just general investor?
It is just general investors. So it's actually, I think I might be one of the only crypto companies here. Right now, it's just general capital markets. And so, there's a variety of different companies, tech companies, rock mining. There's all kinds of different companies. But then the nice thing is they curate the list of people that are going to meet with me that are interested in crypto.
Okay, because I kind of wanted to ask what your feelings were on investor hunger for our sector still, or just risk in general. If the instability kind of was making people a little bit more tighter with the pocketbooks, or what?
Yeah, it ebbs and flows, which is funny. And it really depends on who you're talking to and their level of understanding. There's a lot of people that we're talking to that they've built the conviction now, and they're on the bid regardless right now. They see where this is going, and they want exposure, and the day-to-day movements don't worry them. There's some people that are, kind of invest more like the retail guys, where on a red day for Bitcoin, they're like, I don't know if this shit's going to last. and then we pump on like everything's green again. And then they call you and they're like, okay, I get it, I'm in. But yeah, I would say the vast majority are like sophisticated to a point where they understand the thesis, they understand where this is going in 1, 3, 5 years, and the day-to-day movements don't bother them anymore. They understand that the institutions are finally arriving, that real world assets are moving on chain, that this is the infrastructure that everything is going to be built on in the future, and they want to be positioned.
Hell yeah. Now, you seem like really the most hyped for real world assets. Is that accurate, or am I just projecting here?
I think it's one use case that's exciting. Like, I think we've got all this infrastructure that's being built right now, and one of the criticisms right now, even I think on Sonic and even on Solana, is like we've got the best infrastructure in the world, but maybe not the best assets on chain, and I'm trying to think of the pod I was listening to the other day, but he said, like, you look at like the NASDAQ or something, and they've got terrible infrastructure, but the best assets. And then you've got, crypto, where we've got this amazing infrastructure, but arguably not the best assets. And so I think it's only a matter of time when better assets and the best assets and all assets do come on chain. And that's where we think that Sonic will really shine.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think Sonic is really the perfect place for it in terms of that speed. The custodianship has always been the thing that is like a little difficult with RWAs. But I'm eager to see how other people are tackling the problem. I've seen a couple of projects do it in kind of interesting ways.
Yeah. The one that we talked to last week is for equities, at least. Like, they're basically just a transfer agent, and then they just take custody of the equities essentially, and then tokenize them, and then it just opens it up. And so it's, I think there's still a little bit of work for them to do, but you can kind of apply some of the same custody and regulatory framework that they've got there that allow them to go cross exchange in TradFi and just bring it on chain.
Hell yeah. So it's already there. We just got to put the work in, dude.
Exactly. And like, there's people working on all this stuff. It's all coming.
Oh, man. Now the world's going to change very quickly, very soon, guys. I could see, I don't know. You guys think the momentum's going to flip rapidly? How slow? I'm a pretty patient investor, I think. You know what I mean? I don't. I have fun on the timeline. I voice my emotions on the daily, but I try to keep it even keel on the long term. Time frames for Sonic. Dracula, you first. Mitchell, I know he's going to say something real wise. Only from Goofy.
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be concerns with where we're at in like this Bitcoin halving cycle. Like in terms of just like alts, like all alts, not just Sonic. But yeah, I think that the way things are lining up, it's very like, I think we're slightly delayed because of macro elements. Like we were saying earlier, sometimes when you think everything's ending, then you go look at Bitcoin and it's still over 100K. I think we're more like on a delayed lag kind of deal here. In my opinion, I think we see, barring World War IV or III or whatever, I think like, I think we're looking more like end of this year, early next year for, the more exotic stuff to run, hopefully. I think that, we could see like Bitcoin making much higher, on the all-time high side of things like this fall. So yeah, I think that we're still on track for some kind of, boost here. Now, if we're talking about like RWAs and, all that kind of stuff, I think that, that's still, looking at it like from the outside, I think RWAs are still kind of like in their like infancy. So I think we haven't even seen like what those are capable of in terms of like, putting all these things on chain. So yeah, I think that long term, RWA stuff especially is like very bullish. It's just gonna take some time for people to figure out how to, make the most sense on chain and all that good stuff. But I think we've discussed this before where, this cycle is just different because of like the way Bitcoin and Ethereum and the ETFs. So it's not so much like, oh, alts run. It's more like Bitcoin has the majority of the dominance. And then we have like these little phases where the alts pop and everything. So I think we're still waiting on like that big moment, like those few months or whatever, where we have like those big, really big, violent moves where everybody's just like freaking out. So yeah, I think it's still coming. And I think that, Sonic outlook, I think, if you're looking at a year or 2 years down the line, I think ultimately it's definitely bullish.
Oh yeah. Mitchell, I know you got the long horizon as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd agree with you, Dracula. I think that, that there's still a lot to be built. There's the saying that there are decades where nothing happens, and then there's weeks where decades happen. And I think that that's kind of what we'll see here, where it feels like nothing's going to happen. And it feels like everything's taking a lot longer than we want it to. And then all of a sudden it just starts to go. And we've seen this in crypto, obviously, numerous times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, when we talk about RWAs, I think like, there's potentially a differentiation between real world assets and real world usage. And it's like, once you get that killer app that just clicks and it brings people on, that's when like the adoption really happens. And right now there's still, I would say the real world usage isn't fully there. Like it's a lot of us kind of crypto natives that eat and breathe this. But there will come a time where all of this infrastructure that's being built just starts to click together really quickly. And that's where we hit that exponential growth curve.
Right on. Now, you mentioned killer apps for a little bit. Follow Zone has got a good question here, and I think this is an interesting one. So like he says, so hopefully we get a new Andre project after the airdrop, so more eyes are on the chain. I think it will help people pitch Sonic. Now, I have a question. So when you're talking to investors, like you're going to be doing at this conference, is it the applications on the chain that are really moving the needle for these guys, or is it the infrastructure mostly, or do they have a clue about DeFi, these guys?
Yeah, most people now have like an idea of DeFi. I think the big like apprehension is like, what is the real world application, because a lot of it is just kind of this internal ecosystem. And so that's where I think, the killer app essentially that's yet to come is potentially bringing a lot of these financial products on chain and making it a smoother user experience for the average person. I do think that, like when we talk about the applications on chain, I think it's a great way to demonstrate the growth and the activity. But I think the underlying tech is also really, really appealing. What Sonic Labs has built as this base layer infrastructure and how it's superior to everything else out in the market right now.
So talk about real world usage, real world assets. Just occurred to me, dude, we need to create liquidity pools with 15-year bonds paired against S in them, dude. We need to create these markets, dude. That'll be some real world usage.
Yeah. And I think that all that stuff's coming. Like, there's conversations of people trying to tokenize everything right now, from, water sources to gold commodities and real estate. And those conversations, like we said, they've been happening for a long time, but those are the things that take a long time because you're kind of bridging the old world to the new. But at the end of the day, the infrastructure here is just so far superior that I think it's inevitable.
Hell yeah.
I mean, I think kind of like what you're saying. I mean, that's really where the work has to be done, is that it takes a lot of time to, sell people on the idea of blockchain versus, centralized servers. I think probably in some cases people would prefer for everything not to be as transparent, I'm sure there's cases of that as well. But I feel like it's definitely one of those things where we're getting to that point where companies are starting to acknowledge that, they're just going to get left behind on certain things if they don't start thinking about this move at least, So
you gotta stick with the times or get left behind. That's the name of the game, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people still holding on just because they're like, well, when it's on chain, everything's on chain and viewable and, traceable and whatever. But, you have companies that also have basically Web3 projects as marketing black holes, where they just want to be able to say they're doing something in Web3, even if it's not something viable that they're working on. So, yeah, I think we're approaching that crossroads where it's kind of all right, you're still renting VHS tapes, but everybody's getting DVDs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think, are we not out of that phase, you don't think, of people just putting blockchain in the name of their product or business as a buzzword? Because that's where AI is now, where it's I'm really just making a database with an algorithm, but I'll call it an AI because that'll get me another 10 mil on the cap table or some shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's there's definitely still buzzwords. Yeah, I mean,
Mitchell, for you, all right, this is a big one, dude. All right, this is a good question here. I got a good one. All right, so in my personal life, I try to sell someone on the blockchain. They look at me like I got two hits, dude.
Yeah.
When I go on a date, I don't tell them I work in crypto. I say I work in marketing, and then I slowly ease them into it. You know what I mean? But with investors, is it the same? Do they recoil at the name at the word blockchain or crypto?
No, not at all. And maybe it's just the types of people that we're talking to. But yeah, 10 years ago, that was the case. But we're at a point, I think, with this tech and this industry that it's been validated, and it's not a bad word. And it's funny because we kind of went in cycles. I've been involved in the space and building the space since beginning of 2013, and back then, even the banks, nobody knew anything what we were talking about. But then we went in cycles where it's we'd be 2016, and there's the whole narrative that it's only for drug dealers and money launderers, and then that kind of resurfaced in 2020, and that this energy crisis, and the Bitcoin mining is going to boil the planet, and all these crazy things. But I think we've matured as an industry, that we've managed to kind of take control of the narrative, and that you get less and less funny looks and less silly questions.
Hell yeah. I think there might still be like a little bit of a split just in terms of, I think of phase banks, probably for like maybe the youth, you know what I mean? The older guys, they could see past the streamers, but I think for the young people, I talked to my cousin. She just graduated college, and I told her I was working in crypto, and she wanted to disown me, dude. She wanted me out of the family, bro.
Well, it also ebbs and flows, which is hilarious because, at the, after the market cycle peaks, everybody that isn't involved is always like super excited to tell you that that you were wrong.
Yeah,
but I mean,
that's
so,
true.
yeah.
It's all that kind of psychology.
Yeah, it's like when everything's going well, you start getting those text messages like, "How's your Bitcoin? What's going?" And then it's like when it's down, it's like, yeah, I mean that's house
But
card
each
scam.
cycle we onboard more and more people, and it gets easier and easier.
All you got to do is show them what James Wynn just did. You know what I mean? You can make 100 million from a few million. And honestly, Sonic strategy, you guys should just hit up Hyperliquid. You need to just lever that 7 million tokens or whatever, 10x, turn it into like 200 million. You know what I'm saying? Like let's lever this thing, show them the power.
If I recall, it didn't end so well for Wynn.
No. And I was just
a mistake. He should have gone to Vegas and put it all on black, dude. That's how you really win.
Yeah, no, I just was thinking about it because he's still writing some posts being injured.
I wonder how much money he raised by posting his address. $50.
It wasn't enough. He still got liquidated. So,
guess you're right. Speaking of liquidations, have you guys heard about a perp dex coming to Sonic? Of either?
Well, I know we got we have a couple things that kind of have perps at the moment. But, like we were talking about with Danny recently, how, we have on-chain perps, but we need like that killer, I was just talking about Hyperliquid. It's like we need that killer perp dex. You know what I mean? And this is a post from Intel Scout here, right?
Oh, yeah. This is from Intel Scout. This is how I heard about it. I didn't listen to this space because I was a little busy yesterday, but a major perp dex is coming to Sonic. I don't know which major perp dex this could be. Is it Hyperliquid? No. Hyperliquid's a lot more than that. But that's quite exciting to me. Maybe they'll be denominating their trades in Bitcoin too.
Yeah, someone said like a GMX could be. I mean, I think that's part of the issue is that I remember when like GMX was really doing its thing, and the issue was always kind of like for its time, it was like a good iteration of perps, but really big money still wouldn't touch it because the execution, you were still relying on L2 speeds. They kind of had this crazy thing where like, based on what's happening, like in volume, your fees can change. And I think that's why big money really didn't start doing on-chain perps until Hyperliquid, where, you could have this like really fast, instant execution, like you feel like you're still trading on like Binance futures or whatever. But we touched on this with Danny as well, that Sonic out of any chain could actually technically do a lot of the things that they're not doing on Hyperliquid and actually execute it on chain properly. Because there are some technical sort of issues that some people do still have of Hyperliquid to do these like speeds that they run at. Everything's not necessarily being like executed immediately, and that could be dangerous on its own somehow. But Sonic, if you had the right setup, you could actually be like doing these trades that fast, and everything's like already totally on chain. So it would be huge. It would be huge for Sonic to for someone to kind of do like a best in class style, Binance futures, all the trade order types, all the, being able to move the stuff on your chart right there, your stops and everything. I think if someone really, really executed it, it would be huge. I think that a lot of people would trade perps on Sonic.
We're literally begging for it, dude. We're literally begging for someone please launch a state-of-the-art perp dex on Sonic.
Yeah, and Agnes here says Links is on chain. Yeah, like, and that's I'm not trying to discredit there are like 3 or 4 places that you can run perps. There's Vertex, there's Links, there's Navigator or Navi, but those are still more like kind of like what I was talking about, like the GMX style, where like we need something that's like big money, can feel like they can go and play on it and everything executes instantly. And you have, your limit orders, your take profit orders, all the like the stuff that they're used to. Because what's the benefit for them, honestly? You have to have a benefit for them to get off Binance, right? So it has to be like, like I said, it's got to be like top notch, kind of like a Hyperliquid or something, to get people to actually come and do it that are, say, going to put millions on it.
I kind of like Saltoa's idea, dude. Click to buy on chart. What if you could draw patterns on the chart and that was your order, dude?
That'd be pretty sick.
It's an iPad and a stylus. Won't Flying Tulip do all that? I don't know what Flying Tulip's going to do, Yankee. I don't know anything about it.
You know what? Yeah, Yankee, I'm glad you say that, because there's how much, the amount of information we actually have is pretty vague still. And people are just like kind of running with it. Like, oh, it's going to literally do like everything. And it's like, why doesn't someone just actually tell us what it's going to do? We teased it like 5 or 6 months ago. Can somebody just say, here are the 3 or 4 things it is going to do, and this is what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, just give us like the short pitch for it, dude. Mitchell needs something to go into these. He's only got 20 minutes with these people, dude. He's got give him 30 seconds. He can say on this. All right. Yeah, I mean, I've lost. I've heard so many things about what it can possibly do, but I'm glad to hear that Andre is locked in changing the world, and that Flying Tulip is expected to be widely forked. I'm not. Everyone else is like really fixated on Flying Tulip. I'm sure it'll bring a lot of traction to the network, but I'm not super insane about it. Oh, something we could play. Like, they have no token. The one thing I do know about Flying Tulip is no token. That's my favorite part about it. So I'm really excited to see that.
It's not my favorite part about it.
Yeah.
Depriving me of a new Andre token. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry,
Thanks, guys.
There's probably going to be something built on top of it. Someone is going to find some way.
Someone's gonna like fork it on base, and it's gonna have a token.
Yeah, and it's going to run for like $10,000 a token or something. But I do want to talk about this. I didn't really realize this when I last read the post, but the airdrop points gamers will be excluded. We've got to talk a little bit about the airdrop, right? We had something to say about the airdrop.
Yeah, I had a little something here. Let me see. I'll throw it up. Oh, I gotta take yours down 1 second. There we go.
You got any favorites about the airdrop, Mitchell? Excited?
Yeah. We're kind of, for the company, we're just getting positioned now, so I don't think the airdrop would be too meaningful for us right now. But I'm excited to see how everything shakes out here.
Yeah, this is just we still don't know the exact date, but we know it basically that this thing wraps up in June. It's June 6th, so no matter what happens, we're nearing the end here. So they've kind of put out some little snippets here and there, I guess, to prepare people for, hey, when the airdrop ends, you're not getting your money the next day or the same day. They said it could take weeks to sort out. And I think people obviously love being told that they're going to have to wait to get their money. So I think today they kind of elaborated a little more on why it'll take some time. And what they're saying here is that once it concludes, we'll be working to filter Sybils and minimize bots, securing rewards for real users. So hopefully, I would imagine not as angry now, because you want those things to get weeded out, right? Zero was a good example of that. Was like the most drawn out airdrop of all time, probably, and it was painful, but they were kind of like the first people to really be like, we're trying to screw the Sybil farmers over, and they did. And I think it's worth the time, and especially worth the funds. Like, you don't want like 1 or 2 guys getting the biggest airdrop that aren't even in the eco, that don't care. They just set up their Sybil farm like on day 1 so that they could get positioned. to me, it's really satisfying to hear when those guys get knocked, and then they write the Twitter threads about, why they shouldn't get knocked, and it's this big injustice. And so honestly, I think they it was good. They should have probably led with this before saying it's going to take 4, 6, 8 weeks, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's good information. I mean, it's what you want to hear.
Yeah, I'm glad they're pulling out the Sybils. I think the only thing that would make anyone happier is if they pulled out the stablecoin farmers. Just kidding. I'm a
the loopers.
Yeah. Yeah, they're salty about that. But hey, that's the name of the game, buddy. Yeah, I'm stoked. I don't mind waiting a couple of weeks. I mean, it probably means more for me, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea, is that, there's been so many, especially in the bear market, there would just be this cycle where people launch an L2, they got an airdrop program, the Sybil guys come in, suck up most of the airdrop, and then the chain is done with their airdrop, and it's a ghost town, and it's already dead, and there's like one app on it that anyone uses. So I think it's worth,
we got to time, like, all right, Dracula, you and I, we got to design, Mitchell, get in on this. We're going to design the ultimate freaking epic app, dude. We got to launch it right after the airdrop, like right at the airdrop. I think that might be the play, dude.
Yeah. We're going to put the radio on blockchain. We're going to put the radio on Sonic.
We're going to listen to music on the blockchain. Yeah, dude.
But no, I mean, there's also that. There's a lot of stuff coming to Sonic. I've said this before, that we kind of had like wave 1 of dApps and, primitives and all that stuff. But I feel like, we're about to kind of go into wave 2. There's a lot of things getting wrapped up, or, about the fork or whatever. And I think it's probably good timing to, drop that around the airdrop, or, right after the airdrop. So I think by the fall, there's going to be a lot more stuff to do in the ecosystem for sure. And I think that, some people are trying to time their launches to like come in on season 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a much more interesting landscape here by like quarter 3, quarter 4.
Right on. I also, someone else who's getting the airdrop now, I wanted to bring up, it's a little unfair for them though, because like you kind of get an ad a little late, right? Is all of South Korea. All of South Korea can now participate in the airdrop. Unfortunately, a little late, but hey, they'll be around for season 2. I just thought it was kind of funny.
Welcome, South Korea.
Welcome, South Korea.
The entire country, welcome.
North Korea has been here for a while.
But talking about kind of like big, I feel like we should bring this up. Fly dropped today. That's the Magpie token. They rebranded to Fly. And I think that it's a pretty big launch, really. They had a large TGE, and they did the whole Fjord thing, and they did several rounds and all that stuff. So, some people don't love that. Some people do, whatever. But, the token dropped today, coming right out the gate on Kraken, Binance Alpha, and MEXC. And I think that's pretty big for Sonic. I mean, Kraken listing is, it's up there, to me, that's pretty significant. It's a big thing for the eco. And yeah, I mean, congrats to those guys. They day one, they were on Sonic, and they are a multi-chain project, but they've made no qualms about being like, Sonic is home, that Sonic is our place. And yeah, I mean, it's 6 months now since Sonic launch, but I feel like that's a big one, and hopefully this opens the door for other projects to, get out there on the bigger stage.
Yeah, I chatted with them at the Sonic Summit, actually. Great guys, great team. Excited to see that the launch went well. I was confident. They were confident from the beginning, and they had a strong plan from the beginning, so I'm glad to see it paid off. Well executed.
Yeah, those guys are very, very focused bunch. They're obsessed with the aggregation, and
They're
Flies
serious
like I mean,
guys.
yeah, they're very serious guys.
Unlike me, they're serious guys, and I can recognize that.
So yeah, Follow Zone says hopefully more eco tokens are on Kraken. I agree. Especially just seeing how things are going with I don't know if you look at something like Shadow, for instance, I don't see how it doesn't ultimately open the door for something like that to get on Kraken as well.
For sure. Now, we're running up on the hour here. Do we want to talk about the last piece of news we got for the day? I mean, I have this, but I haven't. No, I can't share that because I don't know anything about it yet. Let's talk about the general news.
Yeah, it's been a fun time, and I think this is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, real Donald Trump. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, I'll read it. Time to drop the really big bomb. This is from Elon Musk. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. Now, I have a question for you guys. Now, this isn't really like a revelation, is it? I thought everyone knew this already, that he's in the files, like he's on the logs or something, right? Like, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that they talked about that he was on the flight logs. I think that was pretty common knowledge. It's also funny that Elon is saying this now after he's been like his best buddy for the last year.
Yeah. There was a guy making a lot of really great posts about that, Mitchell. There's a guy saying like, yeah, well, you're a pedophile and I got you made president. Or,
yeah, exactly.
And I let my son hang out with him all the time.
Yeah, this was a good one. He's like, Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. So he says he took away his EV mandate and forced everyone. So, it's, the beef. I had to go to Truth because I guess, Donald should be posting this on X, but I guess he's afraid to get suspended.
He's a professional on X. He goes off on Truth.
Yeah. So, Trump's saying it's just because of, he's lost a bunch of his EV money and all that stuff. Yeah. Mr. Clean says, I don't fake beef. I don't believe. Yeah, this could be actually like a WWE scenario. They could be setting this up to have a UFC fight in October or November.
I mean, look at this, dude. According to Grok, Trump gave Elon Musk a black eye. So, yeah, I mean, it's starting to look more like WWE, dude. Some domestic abuse stuff playing out here.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about something that would be good for the entire decentralized, Web3, you lead this up to a fight in October. You put all the odds on chain, everything's on chain, and you force people to come gamble.
Yeah, and you proxy bet using Trump token and what was the one Kekius Maximus? Is he?
Yeah, I guess for Elon you'd have to use like Doge or something.
No,
do you guys have any thoughts on the big beautiful bill?
I haven't even looked at it. It's too big, too beautiful.
Ruin says we need Polymarket on Sonic. I know some people that are working on that. So,
what about you, Mitchell? I hear that it expands. It's raising the debt ceiling is the major contention people are having about it. Like a big beautiful bill. It's full of pork and full of all kinds of stuff. So there's lots of stuff to pull apart on it that you could hate or like. The things that I'm aware of, the EV mandate being rolled back. I think I talked about this maybe like 6 months ago when we were LA. I remember talking to Drac and Asmith about this. I was like, I kind of want a Tesla because they're going to get a lot more expensive when the EV mandate is rolled back. Sure enough, it's rolled back. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why Elon's actually throwing a tantrum, but
it makes sense.
But it would be kind of like kayfabe, right? There's no way he didn't know it was coming. It was like on the platform, right? Like,
yeah, I think he. Let's see here. Speaking of, I guess I got another post here. Wow, Truth's really spammy. It's like trying to make me like.
Yeah, but my thoughts, Mitchell, or it could be summarized really quickly, which is I hate big bills. Period.
Yeah.
Period. It's always a scam. Every single time it's a scam, and it's our politicians being lazy bums trying to fuck us over. That's how I think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeless. So because they're never going to satisfy me. They're never going to.
I think ultimately, and like I don't know the details of it, but I think ultimately it kind of just confirms like the general thesis for crypto in general is that like they're never going to stop spending. They're addicted to debt. The money printer will be turned back on, and capital will continue to flow into Bitcoin and into the space in general.
Yeah, I mean, like Saylor says, Bitcoin is hard money, and it's true to an extent that inflation is only going to continue on the dollar. I'm not saying like put all your money into crypto, but I think it's makes sense to have a lot of it in it. I don't know.
I guess like I'm just reiterating, I guess, the philosophy of it. But the beautiful thing about Bitcoin as a currency is because it removes like that human element of control, like entirely. Like the thing about politics always in my study of history and politics is right. Like good intentions lead to bad ends, right? Like the reason why the debt ceiling is always going to go up because there's always going to be a good reason to spend more, right?
Yeah,
like there's always a problem, right? There's always kids starving, fucking wars and shit. Like, but only something like a hard control like Bitcoin can stop it.
That's right. Well, I think we're out of time here, but Mitchell, man, thanks for hopping on. Great insights. Anytime you want to come hang out, you should.
Sounds good. Appreciate that, guys.
Yeah, great conversation. Thanks everybody for watching today. Tuesday is a special day, and we're still working on some stuff, but Tuesday is GMSONIC 100, the 100th episode. So we're working on some stuff. One thing I wanted to bring up, I'll throw it up there on the banner, and it's also we'll put it on, we'll be posting it on X here shortly as well, but good old Lewis has been working on, we kind of spoke about it. It'll be like a weekly newsletter for GMSONIC called Sonic Snacks. And it'll be kind of just like a recap of a lot of topics that we've talked about during the week, a lot of links, that you can go read stuff up on. So kind of just like a nice idea to, not everybody always wants to watch 2 hours of us a week. But if you want the condensed Sonic snack format, that is about to be a thing. And we're going to put the link in all our descriptions, but we'll also do a post today where you can sign up with an email if you want to. I can't promise we won't sell that data to North Korea, but we will do our best. So
I like Yankee's idea, Andre, for episode 100.
Let's get them on, dude.
Yeah, you never know. We're working on some stuff for 100, so we'll see what happens. But once again, thanks everybody. Have an excellent weekend, and we will see you Tuesday.
Adios.
GMSONIC is Corbel and Dracula Presley. GM.